In this video, we'll look into VC Trust, which is volunteer edge cloud computing. So in real time, there is like large amounts of data being generated from many smart edge devices like biosensors, imaging instruments. We process them using cloud, but the price for processing them is much higher. So in order to solve this issue, we use volunteer edge computing. The main backdrop of using them is lacking of trust. So in this video, we'll look into how to maintain trust on volunteer edge resources. For that, we have created three EC2 instances. One is core node 1, which act as our master node, and edge node 1 and edge node 2, which act as our slave nodes, where the actual workflow processing will be done. So core node is one which is responsible assigning a workflow to a particular trusted edge node. So we'll connect to that instance first using SSH. So PEM is a file which stores all the key values for this EC2 instance. Using that only we are able to connect to a particular EC2 instance. And now we'll connect to the Edge Node 1 instance. So here we have applications, two Spring Boot applications, which is demo and master. These are two microservices. So master will be running on the core node, and demo microservice will be running on the edge nodes. So demo application will be getting all the information related to the edge node. Here we have used OSHI package in order to get that information, and master application will be having a REST template which will connect to that resource monitoring microservice and get all that information, and then process it in order to say whether that node is trusted or not. So we have in order to run that Spring Boot application in EC2 instances, we need to create a jar file, and then we have to insert that jar file into the EC2 instance, and then we have to run it. So jar files gets created using clean function. This is the configuration. And using SCP, we just insert the jar file which got created into the respective EC2 instance. Here we are trying to insert a resource monitoring jar file into the Edge Node 1. So now if we look into it, we can see the jar file got inserted into this Edge Node 1. And the master microservice also got inserted. Using java-jar, we run that Java application. Now we can see this application got started on port number 8082. And a resource monitoring microservice also got started in the Edge Node 1 with the port number 8081. So these port numbers, we have to mention them in their security groups. So for these applications, I was using security group 3, which is this one. So if I go into it, I can see there are configurations related to use 8081 and 80 ports. And also we need to mention that particular port in their application properties also. For the resource monitoring application, we are using 8081. And for the master application, we are using 8082. Using their local DNS server name, we'll try to open that application. First, we'll be running the resource monitoring application, which is deployed on the Edge Node 1. So get is the endpoint where the actual implementation to get that performance and security and agility kind of information where we get that. So here we have an IP address and IP address count. These two properties are there. So these we get it by running a shell script on that particular edge node, which tells us what are the maximum number of requests you have on that edge node and what is the IP which is causing them. So based on these values, we can know whether a DOS attack is happened or not. So if we run the master endpoint and if you see the logs of it, we can see a DOS attack is happened because here we can see the IP address count which we got from that particular IP is 300. So the number of requests are 300. We had a threshold like 200. If it increases that threshold, we are telling it is DOS attack is happened. In this way, we'll be able to figure it out whether our node is safe or not.
So for our VC trust model, we have used the STRIDE threat model. STRIDE is an acronym for spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and escalation of privileges. The STRIDE threat model addresses the possible attacks that can take place on the VC trust model, that is on the master and slave nodes. We have also validated the possible attacks that can take place on the resource monitoring application. So for every STRIDE category, we have listed out the possible attacks that can take place and have given an impact level. The impact level ranges on a scale of 1 to 10. So the possible attack that can take place in the spoofing category is the social engineering attack. In the social engineering attack, the malicious user tries to manipulate the employer to give out the confidential information. That is, he tries to manipulate the employee so that he can share the compromised user ID, password, and credentials. This has an impact level of 5. And in the tampering STRIDE category, the possible threat event that could happen is the routing attack. In the routing attack, the malicious user tries to route the information by redirecting or dropping the data packets at the communication level. He also routes the information to him. The impact level the routing attack has on the VC trust model is a number 8. For repudiation, the possible threat event that could happen is the manipulation of log. In general, the manipulation of log means the user can corrupt the logs, which gives us the system issues, and he tries to invalidate them for evidence. This has an impact level of 8. In the information disclosure, the possible threat event that could happen is the node replication. In node replication, the malicious user tries to create the replica of an authorized node, but indeed he is creating a malicious node. This enables the user to corrupt the malicious user to corrupt and steal the data. This has an impact level of 8. In the denial of service attack, which is the most common attack that happens on the VC trust model, is the jamming channel attack. In the jamming channel attack, the attacker intentionally floods the network so that he can exhaust the communication and also the computing storage resources of the system. So the system no longer can receive any data, or he can no longer request any service. The impact level is an 8. And last but not the least, for the elevation of privilege, the possible attack that could happen is the password use enumeration. Over here, the malicious user tries to get privileges and get the user credentials and exploit them. This has an impact level of 5. So for the NIST risk assessment scheme, we have used the NIST risk assessment scheme for the risk assessment approach. The NIST risk cybersecurity framework gives an outline for the necessary security protocols that an organization can work to improve the security measures. This happens in a 5-step process: identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. In identification, it tries to identify what processes and assets needs to be protected, and then it tries to ensure the protection of these assets, and then it tries to identify the occurrence of the cybersecurity incidents, and then it responds to the impacts of the cybersecurity events, and it finds out the techniques by which it can contain the impact of the events. Last but not the least, it restores the services that have been affected due to the cybersecurity event. So for the risk assessment approach, the estimated likelihood defines how probable a threat is likely to occur. The likelihood ranges on a scale from 1 to 10. It also includes the different organizational impact factors, that is the non-compliance cost, direct costs, and the reputational costs. So for every stride category, we have listed out the possible attacks and the problematic data actions and the organizational impact factors on a scale of 1 to 10, and have did a summation to get the total business impact score. So in the spoofing category, the possible attacks are eavesdropping, social engineering, service level agreements between edge and third parties. And due to this, the violation of privacy is caused, divulging of sensitive data, and exploiting access controls are the problematic data actions, for which for each of the problematic data actions, we have given out the organizational impact factor score, and the total business impact for spoofing is 54. For tampering, we have did the summation for all the organizational impact factor costs, and it is 36. For repudiation, it is 24. For information disclosure, it's 51. For the DDoS attack, it's 42. And for elevation of privilege, it's 33. So over here in the risk assessment approach, the below chart tells us the loss and potential problems an individual face when the attack or threat takes place. So in the spoofing category, the problematic and the potential problem the individual face are 3. That is loss of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So we have given out the likelihood for all the three problems the individual faces on a scale of 1 to 10, and then we have did the summation for all the 3 factors to give out the risk per data action. So for spoofing is 408, for tampering it's 308, for repudiation it's 182, for information disclosure it's 540, for the DDoS attack it's 756, for the elevation of privilege it's 219. By this chart, we can understand that the DDoS attack is the most occurring attack on the VC trust model and has the highest risk per data action. So before Q learning, the problem prioritization heat map looks like this for the VC trust model. That is, we have the impact and the likelihood level is much higher. This is due to the DDoS attack. And after applying the Q learning model, we can see that the DDoS attacks have been mitigated and the impact and likelihood is very less. Thank you.